Hello boys and girls, how are you? This is JC once again with another yo-yo review, and today I bring you the Overthinker by C3. You think I've forgotten about C3? No, I bought all their new yo-yos and it's pretty expensive. But here I start with the Overthinker. This is a yo-yo from 2022, so just last year, late last year I believe, so it's fairly recent. And this is the signature model of Mr. Joe Bowen, yeah, from China, the Chinese national champion. And unfortunately, I haven't seen too many of his videos. I probably should have, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll talk about the yo-yo. So just look at the shape. Immediately, you are kind of whelmed because I know I've mentioned this before, but C3 kind of just sticks with the same shape over and over and over again, and this feels nothing special. I have a few C3s for comparison. We have the, Hydrogen Crash. Take a look. Yeah, the profile is pretty similar. The Overthinker is just a tad wider, and here we have the, what's it called? Vanitas. Yes. The Overthinker is kind of like a baby, right? A cross between these two. Right, so the C3 just took two good yo-yos and kind of mixed them and made a new yo-yo. They do that a lot. They stick with the same shape. Again, this is not exactly a strike against them because a lot of companies, they do that. Like Turning Point, like Yo-Yo Recreation, they take a shape that works and they milk it. And they pretty much, I'd say 90% of their products are the same shape for those two companies. For C3, they are kind of like in between Yo-Yo Recreation, which is really conservative with their shape, and Yo-Yo Factory, which goes crazy. C3 is kind of in between, but it's reasonable, I think, because C3, they position themselves as a competition-oriented brand, I believe. Right? They sponsor a lot of champions, world, national champions, so I can see why. And of course, you have to string the yo-yo first to judge, right, before you say anything. But first, let's take a look at the design. I love the design of this yo-yo. Just the colorway is sweet. It's not the usual rainbowy, colorful design of C3. This is almost like a. You look at the logo. I'm just a huge fan of the hub design here. Right? You see the way the hub kind of comes out with the claw logo or like a fossil, and then we have the text around it. I mean, C3 really knows how to do aesthetics, right? And the colorway is kind of heavy, as a dark green with black. Almost feels like an archaeology themed yo-yo. I don't know why. Maybe the Galaxy Dinosaur should have this color scheme. But anyways, it's a really cool and unique color scheme. I like this a lot. In terms of performance, I stringed this, I play with it, and I realized that I am wrong. This yo-yo does not feel much like the Hydrogen Crash or the Vanitas. Maybe more like Vanitas, but Vanitas is super big. Meanwhile, the Overthinker, it's got this drop near feel. I know I talk about drop near so much, but that's because, in the past, in maybe 5 or 6 years ago, yeah, in that time, basically everything is dominated by drop near. Everything feels like drop near, where you go fast. But lately, we've been taking a step back. We've been going big with our weight rings, right? We're maximizing our rim weight. We're making bigger yo-yos and maybe a tad heavier, so that the yo-yos go a bit slower, but they are much more stable, right? So now this feels like the mainstream nowadays. You see Yo-Yo Factory with the whale. You see even Yo-Yo Recreation, they're making their weight rings bigger, and also with what's it called? Japan Technology, which is really popular nowadays. They all do that. But the Overthinker is like taking a step back to the good old days where we have a smaller weight ring, we have a light yo-yo. This yo-yo is like 63 grams. Yeah, 63 grams, which is pretty light, especially considering how the rim weight is not that impressive. Even compare this to the Hydrogen Crash, you can see a clear difference. You can see a huge difference, right, in terms of the steel. This is almost like double the steel. Probably not, but it looks like it. And then we have the Vanitas. Even the Vanitas this is way thicker, right? You see how this wraps around. Meanwhile, the Overthinker is just a thinner weight ring. So this is something that I haven't felt in a long time. A yo-yo that allows you to accelerate with pretty much no limit. You can go super fast. And I really missed it, even though I can see why. I know why this is better. This is overall more well-rounded. I appreciate a yo-yo like this. Now, in terms of C3, the C3 lineup, the only yo-yo I think that performs like the Overthinker, or that this plays like, is the Edulus. Yeah, but even then, the Edulus, I believe, has a similar weight distribution, a similar weight to the Overthinker, but the Overthinker is wider and bigger, right? So it feels even lighter and faster. Now, of course, there is drawback. There's a reason why these are popular nowadays. The drawback being that this is not quite as stable, but they made it. They find a good balance, right? This is, sure, maybe not as stable, but only in cases where you have to do big hops, big tricks where you land, where you hit the string like with a lot of weight. You can feel, and you don't land the string hit perfectly, like you hit the, for example, here, right? You can feel this yo-yo kind of being not as forgiving. But that's, I think that's something, like, in exchange for speed, I think that's something a lot of players would, it's a deal a lot of players would take, right? Just because it feels good to play fast, right? Although, of course, like the drop near era, a lot of those yo-yos, you can feel like this is harder to control. You lose control, especially with tricks that require more finesse, like some of the hops, some of the string rejections, and some of the, I think, the slacks. Yeah, so, and this is for a very specific kind of player. And if you are that player, go for it. This yo-yo is really fun to play with, really good. And I think the price is also somewhat reasonable. I think it's like $120, which again is expensive. It's not cheap by any means, but it's C3. And I mean, in terms of quality, in terms of design, in terms of aesthetics, it's just very early C3 products, one that I'm willing to pay just a little premium for. And it's not like super expensive. 120 is about right for a bimetal from a major manufacturer. So yeah, I would recommend the Overthinker. It's a great yo-yo. Go for it. All right.